As the title suggests, beware that this video will be swarmed by spoilers. The real question that many people have speculated the answer to is why Six betrayed Mono, a hero that saves her from the very beginning of the game. He saves her again from the bullies and then yet again from the Thin Man. Why would she drop him at the end of the game? Many of you have simply voted that she's a horrible person. Some of you have been more intricate and mentioned that she realizes he's the Thin Man, with some more people having different theories. In today's video, I will try to cover as many theories as possible, analyze them, and try to justify which is more sensible. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator, and here is why Six betrayed Mono. Before we get into the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and beware, as there will be spoilers. The first obvious theory is that betraying people and looking at a situation one-sidedly is Six's true nature. We learned from the DLC that she ate a gnome which turned out to be a runaway kid just like herself who wanted freedom and wanted to escape from this horrid world that he was imprisoned in. She also made no attempt whatsoever to save any other imprisoned kids from the cages that the janitor had, even though she could very simply at least try and help them. She did all of that despite being helped by an imprisoned boy who gave his own share of food to Six to satiate her hunger bout. In a fair world, we call that move a dick move. Six, you horrible person. At the end of Little Nightmares, she goes full dark and straight up eats the lady. This in turn gives her more dark powers. So according to this theory, Six is instinctually a selfish, self-absorbed individual who only thinks about herself. But dropping Mono still wouldn't add up, as he seems useful to her. And as long as someone or something is useful to this theorized Six, she wouldn't have any reason to harm or hurt them. She also suffered from hunger bouts, and that is why she ate the lady and the gnome, also the live rat. I often don't see people valuing the rat being eaten alive, but I was personally very upset about the rat, especially that there were carrots lying around in the next room after the rat. Anyway, she ate them because she suffered from hunger bouts, even though she could have chosen the sausage instead of the gnome. But in another theory, it appears that Six's hunger alleviates with life forces. She also didn't free the other kids because she would go out of her way and possibly risk her own life. But she didn't display any eagerness to attack or kill any other children for no reason. Therefore, just dropping Mono for the sake of it doesn't add up. Another big theory that's been circulating around is that Six drops Mono to the depth because she didn't want to eat him. As we can see in the secret ending, Six experiences a hunger bout, so maybe she dropped Mono as she knew she would lose control and consume him. And in other words, kill him. But how would she know the drop wouldn't kill him? For all we know, she dropped Mono to the depth without knowing what's under, and the drop itself could quite possibly kill Mono. Therefore, it doesn't sound like she dropped him to save him from her eating him. If you also consider if she did know what's in the depth, that Mono will drop onto a soft cushioned base without sustaining a scratch, it would eventually lead to him sitting on a chair for many years to grow into a new Thin Man, which possibly will keep on repeating in a time loop for eternity, with young Mono killing the old Mono, also dubbed as the Thin Man, and the young Mono growing into the new Thin Man. This wouldn't be a better alternative. She could have better eaten him and ended his misery quickly. Also, Mono is a powerful kid. He could easily defend himself against Six if she were to attack him or eat him. And she could simply tell him to run away as well. So unfortunately, this theory doesn't add up either, as there are a lot of arguments against it. Another theory is that she got mad at Mono for destroying her music box, which provided comfort for her. Although possible, It's very unlikely, and let me attempt to explain why. Six was playing with her music box in the hunter's room when Mono saves her. She quickly forgets about her music box and sets on a journey with Mono to leave the Pale City. So based on this, we know she doesn't hold any sentimental value to the music box in the beginning of the game. The monstrous Six is a lot more protective of the music box, and after every blow Mono delivers to the music box, it seems as if Six gets weaker. Now this part is a little difficult to break down, but here's my theory. Six gets possessed by the music box, similar to the viewers who are possessed with the TV and the guests who are obsessed with the food. Somehow these items change the victims and also deform them. There are two possibilities here: whether Thin Man possessed Six with the music box to trap her there, or whether it was the Eye who possessed and deformed Six with the music box, an item she liked from before, with the latter being the most probable one. Considering each possibility, destroying the music box leads to one outcome: Six transforming back into her normal self. At this stage, Six seems to be freed again from possession of the music box. Therefore, why would she be resentful of Mono saving her again and letting her transform into her normal self by destroying the box? Her only comfort was by force under dark magic, which deformed her and changed her into a different person. So, as you can see, it's not very likely for Six to drop Mono because he saved her by destroying the music box. A debatable yet solid theory is that the Shadow Six forced and directed Six to drop Mono. The Shadow Six is a mysterious entity that resides within Six, which we see throughout the first Little Nightmares game whenever Six experiences a hunger bout. I theorize that this shadow figure requires life force to survive, therefore it burdens Six with debilitating hunger bouts, forcing her to satiate her hunger by eating things, especially live things, such as the rat, the gnome, and the lady. It's quite possible that the shadow figure forced Six to drop Mono as Mono grows to become the Thin Man. Thin Man is an entity capable of separating Six from her shadow figure, as he did earlier in the game. Shadow Six feeling threatened by another potential Thin Man, the actual younger version of him, Mono, directs Six to drop Mono to the depth to get rid of him. That way, the Shadow Six can still reside within Six and force her to consume more and more to survive, hence get stronger and possibly take over Six entirely. Another good theory is that Six finds out that Mono is the Thin Man and drops him for revenge or self-preservation. Six gets kidnapped by the Thin Man towards the end of the game, and presumably, Six gets a good glimpse of what and who the Thin Man is. She could possibly analyze his powers or his face and find a resemblance to Mono. Many people have said that Mono looks different to the Thin Man. Apart from that, Six could easily see the similarities between their powers, their personalities, etc. When Six lets go of Mono on the bridge, she takes a good look at Mono before doing that, as it's the first time ever she has seen his face. Therefore, she might have realized at that point that Mono is the Thin Man. Subsequently, she dropped him to save herself in the future, not to be at risk from Mono growing into Thin Man. This theory, as any other theory out there, is debatable. It's a good theory, but it also has many flaws. For example, couldn't she see the Thin Man and Mono's similarities in powers and personalities without taking a look at him without the mask? And didn't she have a gut feeling that Mono might be the Thin Man? Yet again, another good theory is that Six becomes evil after getting kidnapped by the Thin Man. We see the Shadow Six appearing after she gets kidnapped. We find her in a monstrous form being obsessed with her music box, and quite possibly, she became evil during her stay at the tower. She also might have found out that the Thin Man is the future Mono, and made the decision to drop him. Again, this theory is debatable, so leave your comments down below with your reasons and justifications. And finally, another theory that I have, which I personally think might be the most reasonable one out of all, is that it was all part of the plan. I gotta admit, this theory requires a lot of imagination, and as other theories, it has flaws and can be debated, but it definitely makes it worthwhile to talk about. As I've theorized in my previous videos, Six will become the lady or the governess of the Maw. Whether Little Nightmares 2 is a prequel or a sequel, this theory would still work with slight adjustments. Starting with if Little Nightmares 2 is a sequel, Six leaves the Maw at the end, killing the lady, and leaving the Maw devastated without the hypnotic powers of the lady to run its engine. Now the guests, including the twin shifts, children, and the gnomes are stranded in an underwater vessel, which could soon sink beneath the sea without the lady, unless a new entity possessing the lady's powers comes to the Maw and runs its engine. Six possessing the lady's powers, absorbing life forces with a black cloud, then eating people, arrives at the Pale City, confident nothing would stop her while having her sinister hunger bouts. Upon her arrival, she realizes that the Pale City is indeed a dead city, occupied by soulless viewers, the porcelain children, also known as the bullies, the lifeless mannequins, and finally the powerful entities such as the teacher, the doctor, and the hunter. Not being able to absorb any life forces, her powers dilapidate. Not being able to use her black cloud powers, nor her shadow figure, alleviates her hunger bouts, so she doesn't experience them anymore. At this stage, Six, being inherently an entity herself, is fading away as she doesn't have any life force to absorb. Therefore, she plans to get to the radio tower and find a way to get her powers back, possibly by going back to the Maw and feast on the guests, as she did before at the ending of Little Nightmares 1, as the guests are nothing but livestock and an essential part to her survival and the Maw's life cycle. But if she gets back to the Maw, how would she manage to get more guests into the Maw? Now at this stage, or later, she somehow learns that Mono, her savior, is no other than the Thin Man. She might have realized that by Mono possessing the same powers as the Thin Man, and as the Pale City being under the Thin Man's control is no secret, as the eye symbols, paintings, and TVs are scattered throughout the Maw as well. In her discovery, she realizes that the Thin Man is running the Pale City, obsessing the viewers with TVs to the point of them getting very fat, turning them into the guests by placing masks made by the doctor on their deformed faces and sending them off to the Maw. And evidence of this is that we find a lot of suitcases and packages lying around with pictures of gnomes. I've explained in depth why the viewers might be the guests in depth in a previous video which you can watch by hitting the card above. Therefore, if Six is to get back to the Maw and run the place as the new governess claiming her position as the new lady, she needs more guests in order to absorb their life forces to re-energize her dark powers to subsequently run the engine of the Maw. And for that, she needs the Thin Man to do his part and turn the viewers into guests. At first, when Mono meets Six, Six is very apprehensive and runs away, but she gets the courage to lure Mono into the tower. Then finally, when Six gets kidnapped by the Thin Man, she realizes that this Thin Man is against her, and the only way she can keep on getting her delicious guests is through reinstating Mono as the new Thin Man, to carry on getting exploited by the Eye to transform the viewers into guests. She still shows signs of remorse as she hesitates to drop Mono, and at the end also when she looks a little insecure in front of her shadow. But for Six, it's all about survival at the end, no matter the cost or sacrifice. Now, considering Little Nightmares as a prequel, the story follows the same way. Six knows that she has to lure Mono to the tower to take the place of the old Thin Man, as he is more powerful and still has a lot of energy to be used up by the Eye. The only difference now is that at the end, she gets directed by the Shadow to go to the Maw for the first time, kill the lady, and take her place, rather than returning there. This theory suggests that Six was part of the plan all along and drops Mono as part of the plan in the grand scheme of the time loop to survive, and as we know Six, nothing stops in the way for her survival. And that does it for this video. What are your theories about why Six drops Mono to the depth? Let me know in the comment section down below. For more videos, stay tuned by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell. You can also follow me on Twitter for the latest announcements. Thanks for watching the video. I've been your host R. Until the next one, have a fantastic day.